What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So there's been a lot of talk around the relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo, with rumors even popping up of the idea of xCloud heading to Nintendo's hybrid system. Well, now it looks like some documents have gotten out from that Apple Epic court case, apparently showing conversation of this being a thing at Microsoft, and we're going to talk about that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 and its first big game sale that's now been announced by Sony, and we also have to go over some bad news for fans of Hollow Knight who are hoping to see a bit more about Silksong at E3. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. If new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with new games heading to Game Pass. We'll head over here to the Xbox website where they have a big card here showing all of the games that will be heading to the service in May, starting with SnowRunner, that's already available. And then we have Peggle 2 heading to the cloud, along with Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. These will be through EA Play starting May 20th. Also on May 20th, we have Secret Neighbor heading to PC. We have The Catch, Carp, and Course Fishing. And we have The Wild at Heart. And on May 21st, also going into EA Play day one, is Knockout City. A great idea for that one, by the way. I will check that one out just because it's going to go to Game Pass through EA Play, so it's kind of like, why not? And then we also have Maneater heading to Game Pass, that being on May 25th. We have Conan Exiles, and that will have an optimization patch for the Series X and S. That's starting May 27th. Along with that, May 27th, we have Fusion Frenzy on the cloud. Joyride Turbo also through the cloud. And I noticed MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries will be heading to consoles. That's actually really cool to see that. Slime Rancher will be heading to PC on May 27th, alongside of Solsta, Crown of the Magister going to PC. And finally, to wrap it up, Spellforce 3 Soul Harvest will be heading to PC as well on May 27th. We also have a bunch of games that will have touch controls added to it, which includes Nier Automata. So that would be an interesting one to see how that works with touch controls. And then there are also several games that will be leaving. You can see the list here on May 31st, which does include a bunch of Kingdom Hearts games, that being Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, along with 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. But overall, a pretty good list of games heading to Game Pass here to wrap up the month of May. I will check out definitely MechWarrior 5 when that hits consoles, as well as Knockout City when that releases into Game Pass day one. Pretty good stuff here overall. Also, we did have reviews drop for Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, and we could see the Metacritic score here sitting at a 78, which I would say is about right for kind of an older JRPG that's been brought up to newer platforms here. We can see the split with 17 positive, 6 mixed. This is on the PlayStation 4. Some of the video reviews I watched talked about the positives, just overall being a good game in general. I mean, if you've played this before on the PS2, you're probably going to pick this one up and enjoy it, obviously, since it's still essentially the same game, just kind of brought up to newer platforms with some quality of life features, which does include apparently like a full easy mode, I guess, so you can just blast through the game with no problems there. But if you're looking for a good JRPG, good dungeon crawler with some interesting mechanics, I would certainly check this one out. It'll be releasing next week. Oh, and I said I would keep you guys up to date on what was going on with Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance with the Switch, since it appeared that the release for that was delayed. Well, it looks like we can look forward to it tomorrow. We can see this tweet where they say Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance will release on Nintendo eShop on the 20th. We know you have been upset about the delay, so have we. It's been an unfortunate set of circumstances out of our control, but the wait is nearly over. So that's obviously good news for people who are waiting for it to release on the Switch while watching it release on the other platforms like a week or so ago. But most likely, like I said, this probably had to do with them realizing there was some kind of game-breaking bug that they had to fix so it passed certification. And unfortunately, even if it's like a 10-minute bug or something like that to fix, it still has to go back through certification, which means you have to basically wait for Nintendo to okay it, and probably just took a little longer than they wanted it to, but either way, you can look forward to it tomorrow. And guys, with some of the quick news that way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the PlayStation 5 game sale that we have to look forward to next week. We'll head over here to PlayStation Blog, where they say, we're also pleased to announce today that the Days of Play sale will start from May 26th, lasting until June 9th, with great deals on a selection of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games, as well as other select products at participating retailers. Promotions are available while supplies last. Please also note that product offerings and availability will vary by location and retailer. Make sure to check out the official Days of Play site, which will be updated with your local deals when the sale begins. And we can head over there because they do have it laid out pretty nicely with some of the PS4 and PS5 games. Keep in mind, the PS4 games you have here will work for the PS5 as well. And we can see Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man Miles Morales there with the PS4, as well as Sackboy and The Last of Us Part 2 will all see markdowns of some kind. We're still waiting to see exactly how much will be taken off of these games in terms of percentages and savings and all this. And then we see PS5 games. That includes Demon's Souls, Spider-Man Miles Morales, as well as the Ultimate Edition, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and the Neo Collection. And here's the thing with this, we haven't really seen any big markdowns from Sony when it comes to these PlayStation 5 titles. They have remained at $70. So my hope, obviously, is we see like 20 to 30% markdowns. The best sale I've seen on PS5 titles is from like GameFly. And the reason, obviously, they're able to do that is because they'll take these games and they'll rent them out several times and they'll sell them for what appeared to be $45 for Demon's Souls, which, I mean, that's not bad for Demon's Souls, which is normally $70, but you have to remember, those games get passed around a lot and then they'll offload them at a cheaper price, which means GameFly probably made quite a bit of money on that one copy, and then they're just recouping a good bit of their money by selling it at $45. This is going to be interesting because it will be apparently a digital sale from Sony, something they have not really done. I guess this is really great news overall for digital PlayStation 5 owners, people who have the all-digital PS5 system who have been essentially locked to the PlayStation Store. As I did notice, some people were starting to realize, hey, we haven't really been seeing a lot of deals on the PlayStation Store, and I can't exactly put a PS5 disc into this system, so even if I could go find it secondhand, it wouldn't work. So I am happy to see this finally happen where we get some sales on the PS5 titles, but we won't exactly know what kind of discounts. It could be like a 10% discount or something, so like $7 off. Like I said, I'm hopeful they do some like significant discounts, like 20 to 30% off at least on some of these titles, but we will see. Should see more about this next week, as the 26th is when all of this should start. So keep an eye on the page that I'll list down below in the sources. Next up, let's talk about some documents that appear to have gotten out from that Apple Epic court case that shows Microsoft talking about xCloud and mobile devices. And let's head over here to Twitter. This is from Steven saying, Nintendo says these portions of an Xbox biz dev executive's deposition in the Epic v. Apple reflect competitively sensitive information about negotiations between Nintendo and Microsoft. She was primarily deposed about trying to bring xCloud to iOS and more broadly discuss console biz. And we can take a look at these documents completely here, starting with the top. There's question and answer formats here where they were going over saying, so your customers, there is demand from your customers on Xbox to have streaming available on mobile, including iOS. That's correct. Then we get a nice big redacted block there. And if you start to realize, wait, this was Nintendo who wanted this redacted, does that mean that they started to talk about the Switch? They go on a bit further here saying, have you been involved in them? I have not. Who's involved in those discussions? Primarily the Game Pass content team and other members of the gaming leadership team. They go on a bit further saying, so I'm just curious, what about your job has you involved in the discussions to put streaming available on Apple, on iOS, but doesn't have you also involved with regard to the redacted? And by the way, redacted by Nintendo. So I wonder what they're talking about there when it comes to streaming with xCloud. Well, let's take a look at this, and the whole thing's redacted. Like the entire page just has one big block, and then at the top it says redacted. So I would assume they then go on to talk quite a bit about the negotiations between Microsoft and Nintendo, most likely with the streaming service that Microsoft has in xCloud on the Switch. Especially since Nintendo says this is competitively sensitive negotiations. Yeah, most likely this is them trying to work out how things would work with xCloud on the Switch, or them recalling different negotiations or discussions around this. And this doesn't necessarily confirm that xCloud is coming to the Switch, but what it does confirm is that there appear to have absolutely been negotiations between Microsoft and Nintendo. They could still be ongoing. That's absolutely a possibility here, but it's also possible that they fell through in some way and they're just talking about what exactly happened and how the process went, as iOS was the initial focus. But then they also, if you look at this Apple Epic court case, they went all over the gaming landscape. I mean, they were pulling up financial documents all over the place because they wanted to set examples versus the other side, whether it was defending or accusing or pushing back or any of this. It seems like a lot of companies got involved in what was initially supposed to be Apple versus Epic. We had Nintendo, Microsoft, and PlayStation all brought into this because it was the whole walled garden approach that was being discussed, and that's something that, yeah, all the other companies with these consoles are part of. So I guess that means when Nate made his video a while ago about the idea of xCloud coming to the Switch in some capacity, he was onto something, since there were negotiations and discussions around this. Now, does it still hold up after what we're seeing here? It's really hard to say, but it is something to think about. The Nintendo was pretty serious about having a lot of this info redacted, and I thought about this a bit more and said, well, even if it fell through, they probably would want it being redacted, because what do you think the first question is gonna be at their next investors meeting if this info got out there that there were discussions? They would really push, I would say, and do things like, hey, why didn't you follow through with the idea of xCloud on the Switch? What are your plans for game streaming in the future, since obviously you were looking into enough to have discussions with Microsoft, and it would be a whole thing they would have to deal with there, whereas here they can just put a big block over it that says redacted and kind of move along. I am still interested in the idea of xCloud on the Switch, and we'll see if anything comes from it, but I guess here we are with them having negotiations in the past, or maybe still in the present around it. Next up, let's talk about GTA 5, a game that just will not stop selling. We know it's going to end up on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, which means it would have spanned 3 generations completely. And it's a Grand Theft Auto game, but let's take a look here, because we now have the release date from Rockstar, where they say the expanded and enhanced versions of Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto Online are arriving on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, with new features and more on November 11th, 2021. Now, we don't really know what those extra features are necessarily. I'm sure it's, they'll talk about faster load times, maybe ray tracing. That would be kind of cool there, maybe super high frame rates. But we also had more information that came out from Take-Two as they released a lot of their investor information, how things were going with the finances. And well, let's take a look here, as we can see this from Daniel Ahmed, where they disclose that Grand Theft Auto has now sold 345 million copies as a franchise, but GTA 5 is responsible by itself for 145 million. In fact, it looks like over the last quarter or so, GTA 5 sold another 5 million copies, which is like, who is still buying Grand Theft Auto 5? And look, I know a lot of that has to do with it being attached to Grand Theft Auto Online, and most likely if it was separated, then it probably wouldn't be selling as much. I know at one point people were saying you could buy the game bundled with shark cards and it would be cheaper than just like the shark cards, because they're trying to, I guess, get you to buy the game again or whatever. But still, that is a ridiculous amount of copies for a numbered Grand Theft Auto game, which makes us wonder, will we ever see Grand Theft Auto 6? I feel like we will, obviously, but I don't really think they're in like a rush to put it out there. But it does look like Take-Two is going to be releasing several titles over the next 3 years, with Daniel Ahmed saying Take-Two says it plans to release 62 titles in the next 3 years. I mean, that's good to hear. I just remember a time when Rockstar would release a ton of games. Like every year, every other year, we were getting something else from them, whether it was a Manhunt game or it was like LA Noire or Midnight Club. I would really like to see them try that again. I've actually been playing Midnight Club LA again on my Xbox Series X, and the game is still really good. So it's a shame that we do sit here and wonder, I wonder when GTA 6 comes out, whereas back in the day, we would get Grand Theft Auto games all over the place. And yeah, some of them would be, ones from like the PSP being moved to the PS2, so like kind of like remasters or whatnot. But I would take that at this point. Like if they went back and grabbed something like a Vice City or a San Andreas and gave it the remake treatment on newer systems with the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, that would be cool. Or even if they just at this point move GTA 5 to the Switch, that would at least be something interesting to talk about with that. But it's been mostly Grand Theft Auto Online and then them moving GTA 5 up to another generation where it's probably going to play very similar. We'll see what new enhancements and additions they have when they bring GTA 5 to newer platforms in November, but until then, I guess we're just gonna have to guess when GTA 6 comes out, which is actually what our poll's about later. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Hollow Knight Silksong, because E3 is right around the corner in a couple of weeks. Maybe we'll get like the full release date, some new gameplay, all kinds of cool stuff. Unfortunately, that does not look to be the case. We can head over here. This was on the Hollow Knight subreddit where they have a screenshot from the Discord that says, "Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in to let you know that Team Cherry does not have any announcements / blogs scheduled for E3 this year." And obviously that is disappointing, but Team Cherry's pretty small. There's not like a ton of people that are working on Silksong technically, so they are taking their time on this one. It's just, we saw it was like the cover of Edge magazine. They had all those extra details. I believe Game Informer got involved with some of it. It was really cool to see all of this stuff come out about it, but then it's been pretty quiet since then, and a lot of us were looking towards E3, or really whenever there's any kind of Nintendo Direct, even if it's like a mini or an indie showcase, we're like, hey, maybe this is it. Maybe they'll show up, and it doesn't, and it's like, oh, okay, next time. Apparently not at E3, so who really knows at this point when we'll see Silksong? I just know there are a lot of people who keep asking about it, and unfortunately, not E3. At least they came out and told us this now, because otherwise everyone would kind of go into E3 expecting to see a bunch of info about the game, and they've kind of set expectations here. So maybe we can look into the fall later this year when there might be another showcase from Nintendo, or who knows, maybe Team Cherry just does it themselves. They put the trailer out online on like YouTube and Twitter, and they just give us the release date, because at this point, all people need to know is when they can buy Silksong, because a lot of people are already sold on it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, when will GTA 6 release? I basically went from 2022 to 2025, and it seemed like the most voted one was 2023, which makes sense because, yeah, I'm not really anticipating it next year, and I guess maybe even closer to the middle of the generation, so they could make it like a cross-gen game. But I mean, the correct answer, obviously, never. GTA 5 will live on forever. They're gonna figure out how to get that thing all the way to like the PlayStation 7 at this point. But basically, it broke down to 2023 or 2025 were the two most voted on years, and I just feel like at this point, like, what's the rush in them getting GTA 6 out if everyone keeps buying GTA 5? I wouldn't be in a hurry to do it if I feel like I could spend more time developing GTA 6, but for me personally, I'm kind of looking towards 2023 for them to start getting things moving. And really, I guess the further they go into the generation, the less likely it's going to be a cross-generation game. Like if they announced it right now, it would probably also be a PS4 and an Xbox One game, and that might not sit well with everyone, because then they're like, well, are the old systems holding back the new systems with this? So like, at this point, yeah, I guess take your time with it and deliver that big, true next generation Grand Theft Auto game when it's time. It might be 2023 or even 2024. And we'll finish up with a comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from One More Than Zero, saying, I managed to snag a Series X this morning somehow, and I'm excited. Update, just got order confirmed for pickup. Going to Target now. And you know what? I saw a lot of people in the comments say, hey, I took a shot, and yes, I was able to go and get the Series S or even Series X in person at Target. I also noticed several people on Twitter continue to take pictures, and it does look like we are moving to that point where these systems, I guess, will just start being in-store pickup, or even just apparently out on the showroom floor at some places, as some were taking pictures of stacks of different Series S systems just kind of ready for sale. And that's good, because if we can start seeing them show up in more stores, it's less likely that, well, bots or scalpers or resellers will be able to stack them in cart or run different programs and scripts to try to overload different gateways for buying and then just take them all from people. If you can just order and you have to pick it up that store, they're not exactly going to wheel out 20 of them to a car because a bot ordered them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's these interesting documents that are out from that Apple Epic court case with redactions that were requested by Nintendo with talks about xCloud. Let me know if you think xCloud on the Switch will happen during this generation. Then also, what about the PlayStation 5's first big sale on the PlayStation Store? Are you eyeing up any of those games to pick up next week? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.